Hello, YouTube. I thought I would make a little comment video on Cosmic Sceptic, a guy I've been following for a few years, mostly because he's a skeptic, or not too much because of his cosmic abilities. But that aside, he's an interesting guy who reads philosophy in United Kingdom, or in Britain, in Oxford, I believe. And he has some interesting podcast about philosophy and ethics, and which is a part of philosophy, of course, and all sorts of aspects around, primarily around ethics and meta-ethics, and how to understand free will and all these interesting things. But lately he has been a very outspoken proponent for veganism, which is fine with me. If you want to not eat meat, I'm absolutely more power to you. But it's more like in the argumentation part that there might be a few things that would need a few comments, and I'll try the best I can. I watched this video a few days ago, but I have been thinking about it since, and I'm just taking a stab at it and watching it the second time now, and try to add a few qualified comments. So let's see how it goes.
So much as hit a dog that they're looking after.
Maybe we should start from scratch.
Cognitive dissonance is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as related to behavioral decisions and attitude change. If you hold two beliefs that contradict each other, you're suffering from CD. If you hold a belief that something is wrong and yet justify doing it, or something just like it, despite simultaneously knowing that you shouldn't, you're suffering from CD. If you think that it's, I don't know, wrong for any person under any circumstance to so much as hit a dog that they're looking after, and yet simultaneously justify literally gassing pigs to death in a chamber of carbon dioxide so that you can eat a sandwich that you won't remember eating, you're suffering from CD. In all my 4 years or so of professionally tackling religious fanatics in the public sphere, I have genuinely never encountered more dogma, more ignorance, more evil, and indeed more cognitive dissonance than I have coming from people who, despite knowing the unimaginable horrors necessary to produce it, just can't give up cheese or just can't give up bacon. Well, if that's you, someone who sees veganism as some kind of fringe woke phenomenon, or as just a funny and mockable philosophical position to be treated as nothing more than a laughingstock for when you get bored, it's time to snap out of it. Okay, we can either have a grown-up conversation about this or not. But if you're unwilling, forgive me for not taking you ethically seriously. Okay, you can giggle all you like about bacon.
I agree. That's sort of snarky. We can have a grown-up discussion. It's like if you don't agree with me, you're like a little child, right? It's sort of he's right out of the block. He is sort of trying to provoke any kind of provoke the people who might have some sort of non-dissonance within their cognitive abilities and their principles and so on, and sort of it feels like he's trying to say that you can't eat meat and be cognitive on dissonances. What would be the word? I'm not even sure what the word be. You will necessarily have to have cognitive dissonance if you're eating meat. That's kind of and if you're not willing to take this challenge I'm proposing here in some way, I guess you're sort of childish and you're not among the grown-ups, which I am, of course. That's implicit what he's saying, right? He's not saying it directly, but indirectly he's saying he's a grown-up, and people who have sort of cognitive dissonance, they're sort of childish, right? So it's sort of a snarky, sort of snobbish kind of what would you like, French waiters look like they're peeing on you from a great height, right? and it's sort of I'm not trying to go in a hyperbole or something, but I'm quite sensitive to. There's a lot to be found in how people argue rather than the bare information they're trying to hand over, right? A huge part of how people argue is manipulation rather than trying to establish a fact. While I'm in that skeptical camp that says, unless you are trying to establish a fact, I'm going to think that you're in the business of trying to manipulate me in some way. And I get that strong feeling from this introduction from Cosmic Sceptic. And let's head on.
As if it's still 2009. But while you do, consider that since this video began, 174,869 chickens, 4,150 pigs, 9 donkeys, 14 horses, and 2,772,879 wild fish have all been slaughtered, so that people like you can satiate your addiction to the taste of their flesh and continue to point your greased up finger at the vegans for being too extreme. For the rest of us, however, who are genuinely willing to take up the mantle of personal responsibility and follow our most deeply held ethical principles without exceptions for the sake of a sausage roll, I want to highlight some of...
So deeply held is sort of... deeply sort of in the heart, and I'm good. I'm sort of a Jesus. I'm holding some deep inside me that is, I was born with it, and I'm just extending how I was supposed to be. I would like Cosmic Sceptic to put forth a rigid moral principle that establishes whatever he's trying to prove, right? If you look back into his history of podcast, I cannot find any video about this is my moral principle, right? He could just establish this is how I am going to do it. This is my metaphysics. This is my epistemology. This is my ethics, and this is my moral principle. But he doesn't do that. But he has some principles. He's not going to tell you about it. He's not going to tell you the principle. He's just going to tell you possibly what he's going to do.
Of the most obvious abuses of moral logic that I've seen on the topic of animal abuse, and show you why it's just so
Moral logic? Moral logic? What is moral logic? Moral logic? I have never heard that term before. There's logic and there's morality. Morality is a conclusion of when you have applied a moral principle to a situation. The morality is you should do this or you shouldn't do this. What's the moral logic now? You are combining two terms that doesn't fit together, right? So you're sort of a sophist.
Insidious. Right, now, you may be someone who has simply never considered this stuff before. And if that's so, don't feel bad. My anger isn't directed at you. Okay, it's not your fault that we live in a society that's normalized animal cruelty.
We live in a society. We, who are those we? We? Everybody? Everybody who listens to your podcast, or also those who don't listen to your podcast, or any kind of individual in the world who would be able to listen to your podcast. So those we are those 8 billion people on planet Earth. Are you talking to everybody, or are those we just a selected few you are referring to? That would be nice to have sort of these terms figured out beforehand, right? And what is society? Are you living in a society? I'm sitting in something made of wood and stone, and I have a table here. It's made of wood, and it has a cloth and a few. It has a book here, Dictionary of Philosophy, and my glasses and a few other things, my iPhone and a catalog and a few bills made of paper. I can't see any society anywhere. What is that society? What is it made of? Can I see it? Can I hear it? Can I taste it? Can I touch it? Can I smell it? Where is it? What is it? Right? What's the ontology of this?
to such an extent that we don't even notice it happening all around.
You are talking for every 8 billion people on planet Earth? We don't? Who are those we? How do you know how other people feel and experience? How do you know that? What is your access to other people's experience so you can compare it with your own and say, we all feel this way?
It's really not your fault. But allow me to clue you in, and hopefully that can change. And animal cruelty is truly everywhere.
It is truly everywhere. So now you're bringing in truth, a term that needs to be clarified. What is truth? Define your term. What is cruelty? What specifies the objectivity of cruelty? So I know when I experience this, I know this to be cruelty. Aren't you just right now violating Hugh's is-ought gap? You are bringing in an ought to a behavior. Cruelty has a negative connotation, which is an ought not. It ought not be this way. Cruelty is sort of a ought not behavior towards an animal or somebody, an individual of some kind, maybe, right? Where did that ought come from? You can't just throw them in and say, now I have brought in an ought because I just felt like it. You are violating Hugh's is-ought gap. Now you need to go and explain how you bridge that gap. Please.
Right. It's a strange and regrettable irony that when I complain about dead animals being present in food and on billboards and in people's shoes, in chairs that I'm forced to sit on, in guitar straps and phone cases and bags and wallets and roads and cosmetics and the only legal physical currency of the United Kingdom, that I'm the one who's forcing other people to encounter an observation that they don't like.
You're not forcing anybody to anything unless you are sort of sticking a gun to their face or something like that, or threatening to hit them in the face or somewhere else on their body or anything like that to force them to do something. Arguing for something is the way to do it if you're a philosopher, right? And that's what philosophers want everybody else to do, is to argue for their stance, not to threaten people to do their bidding, right?
I find it funny if it wasn't so sad, especially given just how willing those same people who levy this accusation against me, just how willing they are to be as pushy and loud and forceful and unapologetic as they like when talking about an ethical issue that they agree with, like trophy hunting or dog abuse or bullfighting. And that's what I'm hoping to demonstrate to you in this video, that when it comes to animal cruelty, cognitive dissonance is the norm, not the exception. You need to establish what is animal cruelty. How do you know something is cruel? What is cruelty? Define your terms. How do I know when it's cruelty? Right? How do I know that? You can't bridge that gap without explaining how you do it. Read your friggin' Hume, right? Or watch my podcast I just did a few days ago about explaining Hume's is-ought gap, what it entails, what it doesn't entail, and my extension called Mandibil's law, just for the fun of it. So you might want to take a stab at that and get back and explain yourself. I had the idea for this video when one day I was scrolling through Facebook and came across a post by a page called Lad Bible. Now, they're one of the biggest social media pages on the platform with around 37 million likes, and you'll almost certainly have heard of them, especially if you're in the UK. They're a huge page, basically, that shares a variety of different kinds of content, and the post that I saw was one about animal cruelty. Now, I started taking screenshots every time I saw a popular post about animal cruelty, and noticed that the general reactions and the comment sections seemed to vary massively depending on which species of animal happened to be the victim. Okay, here's a first example. Swan dies of broken heart after yobs destroy nest and kill unborn cygnets. And Lad Bible captions, the heartless teenagers smashed her unhatched eggs with bricks and rocks. Obviously, this is horrible, right?
Well, why is this obviously horrible? I'm not saying it's not obviously horrible. I'm not saying it's not either horrible or not horrible. I'm not saying anything. You are saying this is obviously horrible. Please point to what the obvious horribility is in that situation. I'm not trying to defend anything. I'm just being skeptic here, right? And you should be too, because you're called the Cosmic Sceptic. Or at least the cosmic part I don't care about, but the skeptic part I really do care about, because I'm an out-and-out skeptic. So please explain what you mean by your terms. Don't just say this is obviously the case, right? It's obviously the case that we need to exterminate the Jews, right? Obviously we need to do that, right? That's not a freaking argument.
Who would destroy the eggs of an animal, killing its younglings for no good reason?
Well, if that swan had just pricked out the eyes of my 6 children, I might want to kill that swan, right? If it attacks my children day in and day out, I'm going to freaking kill the bastard. So, yeah.
And the comments agree with me. 96,000 reactions, mostly angry. And the comments, if these words are harsh, I don't care. I hope that someday these teens struggle to have families and think of their actions. Hope they find the little shits responsible for this and throw bricks at their faces. And check it out, this guy on Twitter thinks that we should bring back public hangings for the kids who destroyed these eggs. Okay, understandable outrage, perhaps.
Understandable outrage. Well, just because somebody did something in the past doesn't mean that you are automatically entailed or in your right to do some harm to them. Where did that come from? Right? That's another dismissal of Hughes Izod gap, right? You experience something and then you say, therefore I must do this. Therefore I'm in my right to do this. No, you're not. No, you're not. Where does that come from? Explain yourself.
Perhaps. But now, here's a fact. That is not an opinion or a hot take, but simply a true fact. Every year, around 7 billion male chicks are killed immediately at birth by the egg industry, either by gassing them or grinding them up alive in an industrial macerator. Egg-laying hens are genetically engineered differently to the chickens used for meat, and so male layer chickens are totally useless since males don't lay eggs. This means that their first and last experience of this world is being crushed or gassed to death, and this chick culling occurs in all industrialized egg production, including free-range and organic eggs. And it's not like we need eggs to be healthy, right? What's the only thing that you can genuinely only get from eggs and not another source? Well, the way they taste. 7 billion chicks, literally ground up alive, or in the words of the British Egg Information Service, humanely gassed every year for the sake of taste pleasure. And not only do people fail to condemn this, they continue to be the very cause of it happening by continuing to purchase eggs. But some teenagers destroy the eggs of one swan and everybody goes crazy. Cognitive dissonance. Here's another one. Bullfighting will...
Cognitive dissonance. Well, the cognitive dissonance lies in you are trying to argue that you should have universality in your moral statement. Just forget that you might be violating Hume's Izod gap, or you have not argued thoroughly for your moral principles wherever you got them from, whether you got them from somebody else or you thought them out yourself. But there's no, you're trying to say that, okay, because there is, I'm almost like saying cosmic dissonance, cognitive dissonance, you must head over to my way of doing it. But that's not, you're trying to get that through the airwaves. But if you're only worried about cognitive dissonance, you might just say, well, I'm just going to, in any case, I'm going to eat meat as I'm going to universalize meat eating and being a complete carnivore and only eat meat. So I get rid of this cognitive dissonance, right? every animal can be killed in any way, I think now there's no cognitive dissonance. That's my moral principle, fine. And then Cosmic Sceptic will be happy because now there's no cognitive dissonance. But I bet you, and that's my guessing, that's on my shoulders, that is not what he's going for. He's going to say, aha, you have cognitive dissonance, you don't have universality in your rules, so I'm right.
Return to Spain with strict new rules. The sport will continue despite the hopes of animal rights campaigners that the coronavirus pandemic would end the tradition. Again, thousands of mostly angry reactions. Let's look at the comments. This world is so messed up that people still want to see animal torture, fox hunting, bullfighting, various festivals that glorify animal abuse and cruelty, sick people with no heart and no morals. It's disgusting. How can anyone think it's sport? Barbaric evil, torture of animals. This is why I would never go to Spain. Yes, good idea. Stay in the UK, where we would never force cattle to run around in an arena whilst being fought by a human. Stay in the UK, where we treat our cattle with decency by forcibly impregnating them, separating them from their wailing children, bolt gunning 70,000 of those calves in the head every year and killing them for veal, taking the mother's milk and then shipping her off to a slaughterhouse to have her throat slit for the sake of a burger. Hopefully the animal protein will give you enough energy to continue complaining about how poorly Spain treats its bovines. Of course, Lad Bible also makes posts relating to cows who have been abused and killed for the sake of being tasty. And I'm sure that this receives just as much condemnation. McDonald's is adding breakfast rolls with bacon, sausage, eggs, and cheese tomorrow. That's cheese from the dairy cows that we just talked about, along with the eggs necessitating the gassing or maceration of male chicks, and bacon and sausage from a pig, most likely in this country killed in a gas chamber, which simultaneously, by the way, acidifies the liquid in their eyes and throat whilst choking them to death. The caption? Breakfast just got a whole lot tastier. Love eyes emoji, licking lips emoji. Give me a break. Right? The only comment that I could find complaining about this post was someone upset that they no longer sell a steak, egg, and cheese bagel. Cognitive dissonance. Okay, let's take a slightly different turn. UK Zoo might have to euthanize its animals after being forced to close. Again, thousands of mostly sad and angry reactions. I mean, I'm not sure what the problem is. I was under the impression that it wasn't wrong to kill an animal as long as it had a good life and was well looked after before being slaughtered. And perhaps people have changed their mind on this. This commenter says, shocking, death should never be an option unless the animal's in extreme pain that won't heal or get better. If it bankrupts them, it bankrupts them. This should be made illegal. That's right. No excuse for taking the life of an animal that doesn't need to die, unless it's a pig, or a cow, or a chicken, or a duck, or, well, I think you get the picture. Right, but here's some better news. Iceland to donate profits of penguin biscuits to Chester Zoo after adopting penguins. The caption, you can help save the zoo by buying this snack. That's right, you can now help penguins by buying a biscuit containing milk from an industry that abuses and kills cows. How heartwarming to be given the opportunity to save some animals by signing the death sentence of others. Of course, cows are cows and penguins are penguins, and that makes all the difference. Cognitive dissonance. Here's something more local. In Oxford, there's a large meadow called Port Meadow, where you can find cows and horses going about their business. Unfortunately, it also has a problem with people littering, and a little while ago, the Oxford City Council made this Facebook post. Litter kills. This 7-month-old calf died after eating rubbish left on Port Meadow. Take your litter home with you, or face a £150 fine. And the local community were understandably outraged. Yeah, you know what else kills cows? Killing cows. 70,000 calves are killed each year in the UK alone so that we can eat veal. And that's done on purpose, right? And it's done by the same people prodding the angry react button in response to people being so heartless as to leave their litter in a field for a calf to eat. I know that I'd much rather be that calf than a cow on a factory farm, but so long as one is being turned into a tasty lunch, who the hell cares, right? Cognitive dissonance. Sea turns red in Faroe Islands as 250 whales slaughtered in one day in annual hunt. This year's barbaric event is going ahead despite the global pandemic. Again, let's look at the comments. Give me a gun and 10 minutes. The whales will be fine and I will not feel a thing when the humans are dead. Nothing humane about this at all, an act of cruelty masquerading as tradition. There are many things we used to do that are no longer relevant to today's society, and I wish this would cease. I couldn't have put it better myself. Now, someone else tries to defend this tradition by saying, how about people mind their own business and stop judging other people's culture and traditions? And here comes the response. A tradition? Shut up. Sick as fuck. Traditions are Christmas and New Year, not slaughtering animals in this awful way. Eat turkey or chicken like normal people, not sea mammals that live in their ocean. Just shut your hole, mate.
Okay. Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, actually, as if it needs it, I do have one comment on this. You'll remember that the original headline says 250 whales slaughtered in one day. Now, if, like this commenter, you want to eat chicken like a normal person, it may be of some use to know that the exact same number of chickens are killed for food in less than a 15th of a second. For reference, since this video began, this is how many chickens have been slaughtered for food. Now, I wonder how angry the coverage of this chicken abuse is from the Lab Bible. KFC is selling half-price Zinger Stacker burgers this weekend. Customers just have to use a secret code word, drooling emoji, love eyes emoji. What's that word? Oh yeah, cognitive dissonance. Here's a video on YouTube that really rubbed people the wrong way. ASMR dog leg eating. That's right, an ASMR channel posted a video of a woman eating some dog. And as you can see, the like to dislike ratio is telling. Here are some of the comments. The most delicious thing about this channel is its dislike button. I'm starting to think that this woman is a demon or something.
I don't know why that eating a cow would be better, or a chicken or a whale or whatever, or a piece of tomato or a cucumber would be any less, more or less disgusting than eating a dog. There's nothing intrinsically better or worse unless you can point to that. That is not something emotionally within yourself. I mean, an animal is an animal, right? It doesn't matter how stupid it is or how big the eyes are, right? There must be some objectivity in it. There's no categories of animals. These are worse to eat and worse and worse and worse and worse. And on top of that are human beings that you can't eat or whatever, right?
Wonder when her eating my mum ASMR video is coming out. Come near my dog and see what happens. How can she eat a dog? Such a horrible thing. And my personal favorite, imagine asking this girl to cook you a hot dog. Yeah, imagine if she put a dead dog inside of some bread instead of a dead cow. That would be outrageous. Imagine if she put a dead pig. Oh, wait, no, because this ASMR video of someone eating some dead pigs, animals which are, by the way, just as intelligent as dogs, went down an absolute treat. People loved it. Cognitive dissonance. But even with everything that I've just shown you, at least vegans are generally respected online for their views and not mocked or ridiculed or anything like that. It's not like...
It's a good thing that you called it a view. That's fine. You have that view, fine. But it's fine that you are going to tell people what you think they should do, implicitly or explicitly within this video. But please establish where you get that ought from the is, right? You have to establish that. Otherwise, you are just spouting your own emotional gut feeling rather than rigid ethics or morality or moral principles, which is inevitably going to end up with a lot of human beings being killed, which history has shown, right? I'm not blaming you that some future genocide might happen or anything like that, but just keep in mind that particularly the 20th century has been the century of state killing, right? States killing their own citizens. Something between 200 and 300 million people in the 20th century were killed by their own government just to get things done, right? Either they didn't have the right color or the right ideals or the right whatever. They didn't behave the way the masters want them to. So they were killed, right? Why don't you bring that into the fray? Because there might be some underlying problem here that of which cognitive dissonance and animal cruelty and disregard of this or that or the other is the symptoms of. And I will bet you that the problem is how human children are treated. How children are treated so that they become narcissistic, so they become unempathetic and psychopathic and completely, they don't give one frick about animals in any way. They do whatever they like. How animals are treated is generally a way to figure out whether or not a person is a psychopath or not, right? Psychopaths tend to, real psychopaths enjoy hurting animals. So if animals are treated badly by human beings, it must be because they lack of some degree of psychopathy or narcissism or whatever it is, right? And they tend to don't care about consequences that doesn't fall upon them. As long as the consequences for the deeds fall on somebody else, they don't care. Where does this problem come from? We are apparently the most intelligent and most aware creature on the planet, and we are able to establish a moral principle for how to behave. But this moral principle seems to be nowhere, because these things you are dealing with now, as bad as they may seem, are all symptoms of a deeper problem, or a much more important problem that you are not addressing, which is how are people treated. And it's people who then end up treating animals cruelly, right? Why do we need to have a state to tell people what to do, to steal their stuff and break up their families and whatever? All these things that happens that create a worse kind of human being. Maybe that's where the real problem is. It's not about whether or not this chicken factory is killing a lot of male chickens. Yes, I would prefer not somebody doing anything like that, but I would also prefer that I do not have a gun to my head to pay for, nuclear weapons and aircraft carriers and abortions and single mothers and libraries and God knows what, right? And people who is going to tell me that they can make laws that I don't agree with, but they need my money to make a living in making laws that I don't agree with, right? Maybe there's a little problem there you might take a stab at some point in time.
Like any post remotely related to veganism, even when it's not motivated by the treatment of animals, is laughed out of the room by meat eaters, is it? Well, let's once again turn back to the Lad Bible to find out. Woman who spent £10,000 on failed acne treatment clears skin by going vegan. Cool. Good for her, whatever. Now let's look at some of the comments. The hardest thing about being a vegan is keeping it to yourself. Ha ha ha, did you come up with that one yourself? If God didn't want us to eat animals, he wouldn't have made them out of meat. I'd rather have a nice juicy burger with a slice of cheese and eat it in front of the cow's crying family. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I've made my point and that you'll think twice before claiming that vegans are pushy or extreme or cringy or just need a nice steak. Or if you can't manage that, then you forfeit your right to complain about animal cruelty when the victim happens to be a member of a species that you find cute. But you know what's definitely not cute? Cognitive dissonance. So cut it out. I've been Alex O'Connor, or Cosmic Sceptic. You can find me on social media here. If you like what I do and want to support it, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Cosmic Sceptic. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
What I might add in the afterthoughts about this is that we are dealing with things that happen. Veganism is what you do to organic material after it has been killed, right? And what you're talking about, a cognitive dissonance about how living things are treated before they die. There's a dichotomy between you being a vegan or carnivore or whatever you think you are, or ambivore or whatever it's called, omnivore, I think the term is. If this is the point of death, all these vores or vegans, they are over here, while what you're talking about is while they are still alive. If every plant and every living organism that somebody wants to eat is treated nicely and their death is like instant, why wouldn't you eat it? Because you have to eat something, right? You have to eat something. And why is it that plants who can't run away is fine to kill, right? I have a lawn right here, and there's a lot of grass, and if I should have done it the way I usually would have done it, I would have cut the grass already. But I'm going to mow the whole plane of grass down to a third of its size, and I'm not exactly killing it, but then I'm torturing the grass, right? Am I not? Well, the grass wouldn't want me, if it could choose, it wouldn't want me to sort of half kill it or disable it, right? It wouldn't want that if it could tell me something, or it had big eyes or could cry or whatever, right? So just because it can't communicate with me, it's fine that I'm doing whatever it is. You are eating the grass or the cucumbers or the tomatoes or whatever it is you eat, the nuts or the berries or fruit or whatever. That is what you're doing. You are killing plants or stealing their, most of their livelihood in order to survive, right? What if I could sort of eat a part of a pig and the pig could survive? Was it okay if I, but I can eat a part of a tree or a part of grass or part of lettuce or carrots or whatever, and just eat it and consume it, and then it's okay. Why is that okay? Just because they're stupid and can't run away, it's okay that I eat it? And then I'm going to make a sort of a judgment about, well, can it feel pain and can't it feel pain and so on? Why is that all of a sudden a criteria? Isn't it just because it's a convenient place? There's a sort of a split between veggies and animals, right? But it would, first of all, there's no way you can figure out whether or not any other organism than yourself is feeling pain. You have no way of knowing that. You can only make a suggestion, or you can have a theory, or whatever the word is, right? But you can never experience it, because you only experience your own pains or joys or satisfactions or whatever. You don't know. Who are you to judge whether or not you are a kind of species that doesn't feel pain, so you can be eaten, and you are a kind of species that can feel pain, so you must not be eaten? What kind of God do you think you are, right? It's fine to make some moral judgment. Just, first of all, tell us how you bridge Hume's is-ought gap. And secondly, how did you arrive at that moral principle you're using, and what exactly is that principle? Please do that. Thank you for listening. See you next time.